Relationships with narcissists are so confusing. It's almost like your reality feels like it's getting twisted in slow motion. And when you don't understand that you're dealing with a covert narcissist, it's like something's off, but you just can't pinpoint what it is. And the reality is that the confusion is hallmark of narcissistic relationships, whether it's with a parent, a partner, a boss. That confusion isn't coincidence. It's actually part of the plan. In today's video, we're going to talk about how covert narcissists get you and keep you in that confused state using 3 emotions: fear, overwhelm, and guilt. I want to share with you how especially covert narcissists use these emotions to quietly build a cage around you to the point that you forget that you even have free will. And I know that may sound dramatic, but by the end of this video, you're going to understand that, and you're going to have some tips on how to start breaking out of that cage. So that being said, let's dive in. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner and the founder of the School of Transformation, which is where I meet live on Zoom every week, and I do the inner work with survivors from all over the world of childhood trauma together. Here on my YouTube channel, we talk about what healing is about, what it looks like, the symptoms of unhealed trauma. But in the School of Transformation, we do the inner healing together. So if you're ready to take the next step, make sure you join me weekly on Zoom. The truth is, being in a relationship with a narcissist is different than any other relationship out there. Because in any relationship, we want to relate to the other person. Narcissists don't want to relate, they want to strategize. In healthy relationships, we want to connect. Narcissists don't want to connect, they want to control. The sad truth is that rather than being in a relationship with someone else, narcissists are never just being. They're always playing this out of sight, flying low under the radar manipulation game with everyone, whether it's in a normal conversation, whether it's they're sharing a story. Every single thing they do is a strategy that is part of their game. In other words, nothing is ever just as it appears. There's always another layer underneath everything they do, whether it's their way of changing the status quo, where they need to make sure that they're up here and you're here. Maybe it's a dig disguised or masked as a joke. A desire to control you being masked by this false concern. It's because I care about you. And so this layer, this game that they're playing, this game they suck you into without your permission, without your conscious consent, has a motive, has a goal. And that goal is to get you off balance. Narcissists do not enter relationships hoping that you stay grounded and being your best self. In fact, they know full well that in order for them to have the upper hand or the control in their relationship, they need you to be off balance. Even if that knowledge is unconscious, they know it. And the reason they need you off balance is because when you are grounded and you're being your best self, you have clarity. And clarity is kryptonite to a narcissist. Picture this, when you have that clarity, it's like you're a tree with very strong and deep roots down into the earth. The wind can blow, but you don't fall over. Now picture what a narcissist needs to do to have influence over that tree. They can't sway you unless they shake your roots. And so they poke and they poke and they poke with a desire to undermine your confidence, to shift your reality little by little. It's almost like they're constantly tossing pebbles at your feet. It's not enough to be extremely painful. It's not enough to be hugely alarming, but it's just enough that you stop looking at the sky and living, and all you do is focus on your next step. Like anyone that wants to win at a game, they are very strategic in how they play. And so narcissists use 3 specific emotions, kind of like the unholy trinity of emotional manipulation, and they are fear, overwhelm, and guilt. Let's take a look at how these 3 specific emotions work together to keep you stuck. Let's talk about fear. Fear is like a trap door in our brain that when it opens, we actually leave our prefrontal cortex and we drop into our survival brain. When that happens, it overactivates our amygdala. So our amygdala takes over. And when that happens, logic goes offline. So we go from asking, is this healthy for me, to asking, what do I need to do to stay safe? After healing from narcissistic relationships, I can't believe how many times I look back and noticed in a relationship somebody engaging in some form of emotional manipulation or emotional abuse. And rather than seeing that and understanding that that's what was happening, I dropped into, how can I make that person happy? What can I do to make this situation better? And all of that was because my thinking ability was turned off because of that fear response. When that's overactivated, our logical, critical thinking is not there. When we're stuck in fear, our amygdala only knows 4 ways to handle it: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So in that case, where I talked about how we start getting so preoccupied with making things better, with creating safety, with creating connection, instead of looking at what happened, that's a fawn trauma response. Narcissists love when we go into that trauma response because instead of being focused on self-protection, healthy self-protection, we're focused on regulating them and making them feel better. But sometimes we can go into a fight response where now we react, we lose control. Narcissists like that as well, because then they can turn everything around and make you feel responsible and hide their manipulation and bad behavior behind your reaction. So as you can see, when we're stuck in fear and we're coming from our trauma responses, we do not handle things from a balanced way. And narcissists know this and they love this, because instead of being an advocate for yourself, you begin living life revolving on how to manage their moods. So fear makes you small, it makes you controllable. And if that's not bad enough, then they add the overwhelm into the mix. Overwhelm happens when our nervous system gets flooded with chaos, with rupture after rupture, and there's no repair, there's no downtime, there's no connection, there's no rest, there's nothing to replenish your nervous system. Think of it like too many tabs being open on a computer that eventually the computer just crashes. Narcissists, knowing this and always playing their game, they intentionally create overwhelm through a few different ways. Through constant arguments that don't make sense. You're fighting over things that make absolutely no sense. Through shifting expectations, causing you to walk on eggshells because you literally never know what's going to set them off next. Through gaslighting and denying things and trying to make you feel crazy. And through contradictory behavior that just keeps you guessing and unable to just be in your body. It's impossible to feel grounded when you're constantly bracing for the next rupture, the next attack, the next criticism, the next thing that's going to set them off into emotional dysregulation. So the first emotion of fear gets us into our survival brain, gets us stuck in our limbic system, and the overwhelm keeps us there. When we're in reaction mode, we can't be in creation mode, where we're creating our life, where we're planning, where we're making decisions, where we have that critical thinking. And then the final seasoning we're going to add to this manipulation concoction is guilt. And this one runs deep, especially if you're a survivor of parental narcissistic abuse or emotional trauma or neglect from childhood. If in childhood, you were taught that when someone else was upset, somehow it was your fault, or if they were angry, that means you're bad. And then if you lost connection with your parents or caregivers as a result, when that is done over and over again, a subconscious program gets formed. And the program is when someone's upset or angry, that means it's my fault, which means I'm bad. And if I'm bad, I can be rejected. If I'm rejected, I can be abandoned. And if I'm abandoned, I could die. Now, again, that sounds dramatic, but in childhood, we need connection for our survival. And so rejection feels life or death to a child. And then that sequence is buried in our subconscious mind. And it's not rational. It makes no sense. But the thing is, it's not conscious. It's not a conscious thought or decision that we're making to think that way. It's very primal. It's very somatic. And it lives in our body, not in our mind. And since covert narcissists tend to target people with unhealed trauma wounds, they exploit this subconscious program with precision. So they'll say things like, I can't believe you're saying this or doing this after all I've done for you. When you actually do something that means something to you, that matters to you, they'll say something like, you're so selfish. Or they'll accuse you of not loving them enough. Or they'll make you feel like, what's the problem? What's the big deal? Why are you making this such a problem? And so if we have an unhealed guilt wound, we will feel the emotion of guilt. And it is so strong that it throws us back into that fear response. We're no longer in our prefrontal cortex. We're back in our survival brain. We feel extremely vulnerable. And then we shift into a trauma response again, oftentimes of fawning. We step out of what's healthy and important to us, and we try to make the narcissist feel better. So we can see why and how these three emotions, when they are constantly being provoked in a narcissistic relationship, really undermine what is important and healthy for you and support the narcissist's need to manipulate and control. When these three emotions are chronic, the fear, the overwhelm, the guilt, and you're spinning from one to the other, your nervous system stays stuck in a dysregulated loop. And so from a somatic experiencing lens, this is where your body starts holding tension. Your digestion suffers, sleep is disturbed, and your sense of self shrinks. But guess who benefits? The narcissist, because you become easier to manipulate, more dependent, and less likely to see a way out. So often when we're in these relationships, we lose sight with what is the most empowering thing to do. We try to get through to the other person. We try to help them to see what's happening so that the dynamics can change and there can be safety and connection. Now, if you were dealing with a healthy person, that's great. That's a wonderful thing to do. But you're dealing with a person that speaks a different language when it comes to relationships. When you tell a narcissist, when you do this, that hurts me, they hear, oh, this is working. Let's keep doing this. So rather than trying to change them and get through to them, sadly, if they're high on the scale of covert narcissism, they don't want to change. They don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. And the chaos and these crazy dynamics are all part of their game, and it works for them. So the most empowering thing you can do is to stop playing the game entirely. And we do that by learning to seek the safety that we deserve, the safety that we've been trying to create in the relationship and get from the other person. We start learning how to create it from within. And I'll be honest, it's challenging because when we stop playing the game, we come face to face with a very dysregulated nervous system that we didn't even know was dysregulated. And we've been so out of our bodies for so long that coming back into our bodies takes time. It takes building capacity. It takes working through the unhealed trauma from the past. It takes learning how to be with uncomfortable emotions and handle them not from our limbic system, not from our survival brain, but from our prefrontal cortex. And so it's a whole rewiring process. It's not easy, and it's very difficult to do alone. And that's exactly why I formed the School of Transformation, because instead of just giving people videos on how to do this, we do it together live on Zoom every week. We learn how to heal our nervous system so that we can come back home into our body, so that we can be our grounded, best self. Because the truth is, none of us were ever meant to be someone's pawn. You were meant to live grounded, clear, and free. And even if someone spent years trying to convince you otherwise, that truth still lives inside of you. And so I know that it takes work to heal your nervous system, to come back home into your body, but I also know that it's worth it.